I upload daily NBA content on this channel, so if that is something that interests you, then subscribe. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and it makes a massive difference. Also, there is a new episode of the My NBA series out now. If you have not seen that already, it's going over the off season, so I'd really appreciate it. Actually, there's also episode 10. I just realized I'm uploading episode 10 today as well. So there is 2 episodes that I've released in the last 3 days, including this one. So go check those out if you have not yet. The Chicago Bulls just played their first preseason game, and as much as the preseason does not matter, like at all, I'm still panicking. Being a fan of a bad NBA team is very stressful, and there are many questions about this team that I'm afraid to what the answer is, but I'm going on a tangent. As you can tell by the Lauri Markkanen jersey behind me, I am a Chicago Bulls fan, and I personally would not recommend it. It's not fun. But last year, the Bulls were just a complete and total disaster. While there is solid talent on this roster, said talent was completely mismanaged by the dumbest human being who has ever lived, like objectively the dumbest. When Jim Boylan dies one day, the average IQ of the planet will go up. And in this offseason, the next 2 dumbest people on the planet, Gar Pax, ended up getting fired. Well, technically John Paxson is still on the team in some sort of role, but he's basically just like a secretary now or something. And in their place came Artuis Karnisovas, who fired the dumbest man alive and hired an actual NBA caliber coach in Billy Donovan, and then drafted Patrick Williams with the 4th overall pick. By all accounts, the Chicago Bulls improved by addition with subtraction, and I would say that last year this was a playoff team. However, unfortunately, the Eastern Conference improved with the Wizards and the Atlanta Hawks, so even though I do think this team is better than last year's Bulls, I don't know how much it's actually going to show in the standings. Let's talk about it. The depth chart for this team isn't as easy to pin down as most. The point and 2 guard spots are clearly going to both Kobe and Zach Levine. Then the 3 is probably Otto Porter Jr. opening night, but I have a feeling the Bulls front office feels Patrick Williams is a small forward, even though I disagree. So I think he'll start a good amount at the 3 and possibly even be better than Porter by the midpoint of the season. Also, Porter is like constantly injured, but the point is, it seems like that position will be split between the 2. Then there's Lauri Markkanen at the 4, Wendell at the 5. Off of the bench is Thomas Satoransky, who I don't look like, shut up. Garrett Temple is the bench 2 guard, then OPJ, Thaddeus Young, and Daniel Gafford. And while I typically don't talk about the reserves, Chandler Hutchinson is someone I also expect to get around 18 to 20 minutes a game. So at point, Coby White is someone that I have unfortunately kind of been forced to talk negatively about for the most part for his career. Not because he's bad, but because he's good. The reason that I have to be negative for the most part is that Bulls fans seem to think he is Jesus Christ on the basketball court, and that's just simply not the case. Coby is a combo guard with decent size and athleticism. He also has a pretty good three-point shot, a very good mid-range shot, and has shown flashes of being a good slasher, though thus far it has only been flashes. He's also not bad defensively with upside on that end, however he is also a very poor playmaker, which makes me think he's really a shooting guard, not a point guard. And what I just described is a good player, and with Coby White being just 13 days older than me, he is young, because I am young, not 45 years old. But I swear to God, no exaggeration, there are Bulls fans that treat Coby White like he is a generational talent. I'm not kidding. He's not someone who you can even confidently say is a future all-star. So while Coby is solid, I just wish Bulls fans would chill, because it gets to the point where I have to wonder if we are even watching the same games. Zach Levine remains one of the most underrated and over-criticized players in the league because of factors outside of Zach's control. Part of this comes in pushback to the smaller section of NBA fans that seem to believe that Zach Levine is like a top 15 player or something. He's definitely not that. Zach is a player who has very clear strengths and very clear weaknesses, and for reasons perplexing to me, NBA fans in general really choose to focus on the weaknesses when he's still a damn good player even with said weaknesses. Either way, Zach is like the 40th or so best player in the NBA, somewhere in that ballpark, and that's not the best player on a championship team or anything close to it, and probably not even the best player on a good playoff team. But he's a nice player to have, and it's not his fault that he's been put in this position where he is overly relied on. Patrick Williams was someone that you should probably know that I was not happy about the Bulls selecting in the draft where they selected him, but the more and more I learn about Patrick Williams, the more and more I like, to the point where he might end up being my favorite player on the team. A big forward who can put the ball on the floor and somewhat shoot on offense, and on defense, he's someone who has 1 through 5 defensive potential. It's just a matter of if he lives up to it. He is a power forward. Like, everything about him screams power forward, but we'll see him play a lot of small forward this season. I can see it situationally, but like, he's long-term definitely a 4. Larry Markkanen's jersey is hanging up Larry Markkanen's jersey is hanging up behind me. He was my favorite player on this team for a good while, which means he was my favorite player in the league for a good while. And as a whole, I would 100% agree, and I've made this point before, that Larry Markkanen got completely shafted out of the offense to be just not very useful with Jim Boylen last year, and that was not his fault. However, when I really stop and consider the player Lowry is with the weaknesses he has, I really have to wonder what his ceiling actually is, and if it's much higher than what he did in his second season, which wasn't all that amazing in the long term. The fact of the matter is, Lowry is a 7-footer who is too soft and defensively inept to play the 5 and too slow to guard the 4 and the perimeter in general. He's not really a great ball handler, not a great finisher. He has athleticism, but he doesn't really use it. Like, his talent is being tall and being an above average shooter. And keep in mind that I did not say good shooter. I said above average very intentionally. He's pretty solid, but for his career, he's at league average shooting percentage-wise on about 6 attempts per game. And that's just not elite. And the shooting was supposed to be his biggest strong suit. Honestly, his ceiling to me is like Davis Bertans with a little bit better attacking ability, but even then, I think he'd have to take some serious strides for him to even be the level of shooter that Davis Bertans is. So, I do not think highly of Larry Markkanen at this point. Personally, I have kind of given up on him, and I would rather trade him than be the team that ends up overpaying him in his contract extension. So, I would rather just see Patrick Williams at the 4, get a long-term small forward, and Lowry is on another team. Hurts to say that, but that's kind of where I am at this point. Wendell Carter Jr., in my opinion, is the Bulls' best prospect by far. And the reason for this is that I think his ceiling is a less athletic Bam Adebayo with a jump shot, and that's a hell of a player. Now, he's not displayed the shooting at even an okay level yet. He did go 0 for 5 from 3 in that Rockets game, but I think he can be solid from outside. He's been a great mid-range shooter for his career, and he's pretty solid from the free throw line, and he shot well from 3 in college. He's also a playmaker at the 5 spot, and he had the Bulls as a top 10 defense when he was healthy, and presuming he maintains that health, I think he can be very good. Like, Wendell was pretty much single-handedly the reason the Bulls were respectable defensively last year, and even at times really good. That says a lot about a guy who is a second-year player at the center position. The bench unit for this team, I think, is pretty solid in the talent department, though the fit between them is a little bit iffy. Satoransky is a solid backup point guard. Garrett Temple is a solid backup 2 guard and a great locker room presence. Otto Porter Jr. will start a lot, but rather it's him or Patrick that's a pretty good backup forward. Thad Young I don't love, but he is still good. Daniel Gafford is your run-of-the-mill run, jump, and dunk guy, but he is good at it, and with him being a 20-minute per game guy, you really can't be mad at it. I also think that Chandler Hutchinson has really solid upside. If he could just remain healthy and figure out the jump shot, I think he could be an athletic Jay Crowder with some minute but noticeable playmaking abilities, at least on the fast break. So that's the talent on this roster, and I would say that I'm pretty damn confident that Billy Donovan will utilize this talent much better than Jim Boylen did, because I could probably utilize this talent better than Jim Boylen did. But unfortunately, this team is going to come to the same fate as other Eastern Conference teams like the Magic, and I also believe the Indiana Pacers, but they really didn't get better, while teams in the East did get better. I mean, the Bulls did technically get better, but they had to get a lot better to be a playoff team, and they really didn't. I do believe this team is considerably better than last year's team. However, while I do believe this team improved, ironically, I think their win percentage and their conference standing is going to remain relatively similar. In my Eastern Conference standings for this year, the Bulls are the 11th best team in the East, and last season, the Bulls were the 11th best team in the East. If I teleported this Bulls team back a year, I would probably have them as the 9th seed and possibly even the 8th seed. But the East just got better. But I'm actually not that mad about it, ironically, because this has been a goal that I wanted this team to reach for 2 years. At this point, my attachment to this team and its players is rather minuscule, and I've become more patient in regards to what this team is going to be in the future now that there are new sheriffs in town in terms of the management. If trading Levine is a solution, then I'm not going to be too mad at it immediately. If trading Larry Markin is a solution, which I actually kind of think it is, I'm not going to be mad at it. I'm kind of just waiting and seeing here. I think Patrick Williams and Wendell as a big man duo has serious defensive potential with offensive upside. I think Kobe can be a perennial 20-point scorer who is decent all around. So as someone who is not patient at all, just ask the editor of this video, Rudy. I do not have an ounce of patience in my bones. I ask him if the video is done 10 minutes after sending it to him. But even though I do think that many Bulls fans have been overly comfortable with Karnisovas to the point where they really don't question anything he does, at the same time, it's very clear to me, based on the fact that it's not a hard bar to reach, that he's more competent than the previous management. Acting like he can do no wrong is problematic, but at the same time, just dropping Garpax and Boylan has made me feel like even if we are bad, I have confidence that it's actually going to be going in the right direction regardless. Because there are actually legitimately competent and maybe even better than just competent individuals behind this organization that mean that this team can actually head in a positive direction instead of me just lying to myself to believe that it actually is. So, yeah. The Bulls, I'm a little worried about them, especially going into this year, but at the same time, I'm also not too worried because I believe that we are in good hands, and we have not been in good hands for a long fucking time. And I don't know why I'm saying we, because I'm not in control of the Bulls, and I think that's a weird thing that NBA fans do, but it's a habit, and I'm doing it, so shut up. And again, if you have not checked them out yet, go check out those new My NBA videos, but shout out to Rudy for editing this video, and that is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.